So in 2024, a whole bunch of court documents were unsealed. And just like that, the long-standing, very weird relationship between Bill Clinton and Giuffre Epstein was right back in the spotlight. For years, it's been all rumors and whispers, but now we have the files. So let's try to cut through all the noise and see what the documents actually have to say.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What do these new Epstein files really tell us about Bill Clinton's involvement? We're going to push past all the speculation, stick to the documented facts, and figure out what's real and what's not. Okay, so to even begin to make sense of these files, we've got to rewind the clock a little bit. We're going back to the early 2000s, right after Clinton left the White House. This was the moment when two very, very different worlds of power started to, well, overlap. On one hand, you've got Bill Clinton. He's this super energetic former president, and he's busy building his global Clinton Foundation. And then on the other hand, you have Giuffre Epstein. He's this guy with seemingly endless, mysterious money, and he's using it to build this incredibly exclusive and powerful social network. And their paths crossed at a really pivotal time for both of them. And, the timing here is absolutely crucial. Their friendship really got going between 2001 and 2003. Now, this was years before the first police investigation into Epstein even started in 2005. Back then, to a lot of people in his circle, Epstein wasn't some monster. He was just this kind of eccentric, very generous billionaire. And that connection, well, it leads us to maybe the most scrutinized piece of this entire puzzle, the flight logs from Epstein's private jet. 26. I mean, just let that number sink in. That's the number that always comes up. Between 2001 and 2003, flight logs show Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's private Boeing 727, a plane that would later get a much darker nickname, the Lolita Express, a total of 26 times. It's a shocking number, and it definitely needs some serious context. So, what's the official story? Well, Clinton's team has always said that these flights were for Clinton Foundation work, and that it was really just a matter of logistical convenience. But, and this is a huge but, they have always made one crucial, very specific denial, that Bill Clinton never once set foot on Little St. James, Epstein's private island where so many of his crimes took place. Now, beyond the flights, there was also money involved. We know from public records that Epstein pledged a total of $200,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And look, that's a lot of cash for sure. But just to put it in perspective, it was a tiny, tiny fraction of the hundreds of millions the foundation was raising at the time. But the whole story took a much, much darker turn in 2015. I mean, the flights and donations were one thing, but a direct claim from one of Epstein's primary accusers, that changed everything. In a 2015 deposition, one of Epstein's most prominent survivors, Virginia Giuffre, made an absolutely explosive claim. She alleged that she was directed to have sexual encounters with powerful men, and she specifically mentioned Bill Clinton by name. But that one statement, it isn't the whole story. Because in 2019, Giuffre herself provided a really crucial clarification. In an interview with the BBC, she was asked, point blank, "Did you have sex with Bill Clinton?" Her answer was a clear and simple no. And this is so important because it highlights a massive legal distinction, the difference between being told to do something and that act actually happening. Which brings us to the main event, the 2024 document release. After all this time, all the speculation, what did these files actually add to the story we already knew? I think a lot of people were expecting some kind of bombshell client list, right? A list of all the criminals. But the reality was way more complex. What these files mostly are transcripts from a civil defamation lawsuit. And they're filled with people's memories, secondhand accounts, and a whole lot of hearsay.
And that word, hearsay, is really key here. So what does it even mean? Well, essentially, it's secondhand testimony. It's someone talking about what they heard someone else say. And understanding that is so important because just because a name gets mentioned in these documents, it is absolutely not the same as being charged with a crime. So what was the big reveal about Clinton in all these thousands of pages? Well, to put it simply, there wasn't one. There was no smoking gun, no new direct allegations of abuse by him. The documents pretty much just confirmed what we already knew. Clinton and Epstein had a social relationship, and they traveled together. So where does all of this leave us? I mean, if the files didn't have any new criminal evidence, what's the final verdict on Clinton's relationship with a guy like Giuffre Epstein? Let's just break it down into what we know for sure versus what's still unproven. The 26 flights, the $200,000 in donations, the fact that they knew each other socially. Those are documented facts. But what the files don't have is any proof that Clinton knew about the crimes, or that he participated in them, or that he ever visited Epstein's Island. And this really gets to the heart of it. For Bill Clinton, the issue here isn't a legal one. He's not facing any charges. The verdict is a historical one. His association with a predator like Epstein is now and forever a stain on his legacy. It raises these unavoidable questions about his judgment and about the kind of willful blindness that can happen when you're in the orbit of that kind of extreme wealth and power. In the end, the files don't prove a crime was committed by him, but they do leave us with a really heavy question. Just being close to evil isn't illegal, but for the most powerful people in the world, what's the responsibility to see and to act on what's happening right in front of them? That is the shadow on the tarmac that may never fully disappear.